Hello, everybody. How you doing tonight? Last night was a long night. Election nights tend to be long nights, and I was up pretty late watching the results. As many of you know, I'm Corky Messner, and I founded the New Hampshire Advantage PAC, and the PAC supported, I think, about 30 state candidates, conservative Republicans, mostly all conservative Republicans, all Republicans, but I would say most of them were conservative Republicans. And we supported them in a number of ways, but mostly through digital advertising. And our candidates did pretty well. But make no mistake, I mean, last night was not a good night for we Republicans. The political environment that existed yesterday was as good for Republicans in New Hampshire as we may see in a very, very long time. I mean, you've heard it all, the high inflation, opioid crisis, economy, border, war in Ukraine. You've heard it all. But it was a very, very good environment for Republicans. And you heard all the talk about the red wave, and I quite frankly, and I've said a number of times on Facebook Live, I don't like that talk. Well, even though we had a very, very good environment, we didn't do so well. And we didn't do so well in New Hampshire in the federal elections, U.S. Senate, CD1, CD2. Luckily, I just read earlier, we kept the state house, state reps, barely. We're 14-10 in the state Senate. So that's good. We kept that. And Sununu won, of course. But our federal candidates got wiped out. So why did that happen? And let me just step back and say, I was studying the polls in our federal elections very closely, and those polls are awful. I mean, they're just awful. I mean, that Trafalgar group, which had Don Bolduc winning the Senate by 1 point, and turns out he lost by 9 points. I mean, way off. And the more I studied the polls, the more I came to the conclusion that most of them, there's a few that are pretty legitimate, but most of them are designed to reach out to the base, to get the base excited to go vote, but they're not accurate. They're not accurate. Now, full disclosure, as many of you know, I'm frequently on Chris Ryan's radio show on WGIR. So he texted me his predictions on the federal races, and I texted him my predictions on Monday, and I predicted that we would lose all 3 federal races. I predicted that Don Bolduc would lose the Senate race by 7. Looks like he's going to lose by 9. Another part of full disclosure, I made a maximum donation to the Don Bolduc campaign. So, why did we lose? And why am I calling this Facebook Live, Bolduc, get over it? Well, let me look at my notes here. I think the politics of anger and division and insults don't work. They don't work at all. And I think that we conservatives who are running for office, we can point out the problems, we can point out that there's high inflation, but we must come up with proposed solutions, common sense conservative solutions. And we didn't see that. We did not see that out of any of our federal candidates. Specifically, we didn't see it out of Don. If you watch the debates, all he did was attack Hassan, and never offered up any solutions. And people are tired of that. In particular, those folks in the middle who decide elections in New Hampshire are tired of those kinds of politics of division and the insults and the yelling and the lying. And we did not do a good job, and Don did not do a good job of reaching out to the center, those voters who decide elections in New Hampshire. Everyone needs to know, if you don't know this, in New Hampshire, there's about 31% registered Republicans, about 32% registered Democrats, and the rest are undeclared. They're independents. So tell that to your Democrat. No. All right. That's Linda. So at any rate, I'm trying to read these comments and do this at the same time. I probably should not do that. So at any rate, the name calling, the fighting is not good. We have to offer up solutions. Now, why did I name this Facebook Live Get Over It? BOLDUC Get Over It. I'll tell you why. When the Dobbs decision came down that overturned Roe v. Wade, I mean, Don there's video of him saying, rejoice, rejoice. And I'm pro-life. And then when asked about it on camera, he said that they just have to get over it. Now, what you got to understand, Roe v. Wade, abortion is a very, very emotional issue, both for women who are pro-choice and for women who are pro-life and for everyone else. It's a very emotional decision. And I think what was needed in that time is some compassion for people and not a spike in the ball in the end zone, rejoice. And then when asked about it, you say, get over it. And it just turned off a lot of people. And I think that really, really set the tone, this negative tone that really hurt him. And here's the thing. There was no teamwork in those federal campaigns that I could see. Yeah, they did some events together. But if you watch the Democrats in the debates, if you watch Hassan and Pappas and Custer, you could clearly see that there was a level of cooperation and collaboration in how they answered questions during the debates. And I didn't see that with the Republicans. And I got to tell you, it's the job of the U.S. Senate candidate to provide leadership to those other candidates. And it just didn't happen. And I think what happened is this cloud of negativity then had a ripple effect, not only on the other federal elections, but also on the state elections. I mean, we barely kept the state house. We barely kept it. But luckily we did. And how Don ran that election is a case study of how Republicans lose elections. And we must, here in New Hampshire, we have to come up with a better strategy. We have to work together in order to win these elections. And we're not doing it. And it came through so loud and clear. Excuse me for coughing. So let me go back. And this all started back when Governor Sununu announced that he wasn't going to run for the U.S. Senate. You may recall last year about this time, everyone was hoping Governor Sununu would run, and he did not. And he announced he wasn't running. At that point, Don BOLDUC was the only announced candidate. And it was an opportunity for Don to embrace Sununu. And instead, what he did is he said that Sununu wasn't running because Sununu knew that thought that the BOLDUC could beat him. And then he went on to call Sununu a Chinese Communist Party sympathizer. I mean, I don't get it. It was ridiculous. And what he did was he stiff-armed Sununu at that point. And even though Governor Sununu at the end was trying to help BOLDUC, it would have been a much more cooperative effort throughout the campaign, but for those bizarre comments by BOLDUC against Sununu. And listen, I know there's a lot of people out there, conservatives who call Sununu a rhino. Hell, there were comments on my page calling me a rhino. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not a rhino. And by the way, I think people who call other people rhino, they don't know enough about politics to know even what that means. And it's just silly. So stop it. So that set a tone, for Don's campaign, where he's beating up Sununu, who at the time is the most popular politician in this state. Approval rating at the time at like 65, and who went on to a landslide fourth term of governor. And Don was basically lying and making this stuff up about Governor Sununu. Made no sense whatsoever. And that was the beginning of the bizarre comments that came from Don throughout the campaign. So you may recall, back in, I think it was February or soon after the Ukraine war started, and Don was on Fox, and he basically said, watch the tape. He said, we got to get in there. We got to send in special ops. We got to bring in indirect fires. And it was that Steve Hilton hosting, and he said, are you saying get troops on the ground? And Don waffled a little bit. But it was shocking. And in fact, Jennifer Griffin came on after that and called out Don BOLDUC as not knowing anything about strategy. But it was a continuation of these bizarre events. And then the election denying stuff, where he signed a letter with 125 other generals saying that Trump really won the election, and then Mr. Moran here. Let me see what the full comment is. I'm gonna try to. Yeah, I think that's a good comment, Monty Moran. And that's what I'm saying. There were no proposals to solve the problems. I mean, we're talking about, BOLDUC was talking about the 2020 election being stolen. In fact, in the debates for the primary, he said on stage that he stood by signing that letter, and he said, and I won't switch horses. And then, of course, the day after the primary, after he won, he went on Fox and switched horses. And then, there was other audio that came out where he said at other events where he switched back and forth. And he went on to say other bizarre things about elections. And it's just no credibility, no ideas about how to solve problems. And it was, so what happened is Hassan puts up a website called BOLDUC Facts and started hitting him on this stuff, election denial. They had video of Don BOLDUC saying he wanted to eliminate Social Security and he wanted to cut Medicare. And that website's still up. I checked on it. But, and that's the third rail of politics. I don't know why Republicans want to say those things. It's a big time loser. And then during the debates, Don's telling Hassan that she's lying about this stuff, and it's in video, it's in audio. But so at any rate, and then the bizarre comments about litter boxes in schools and so forth. And here's the thing. So for us to win these elections, we have to have solutions. We have to propose solutions to the problem. We can't just sit there and criticize and attack. We have to come up with solutions. And our federal delegates didn't do that. Our federal representatives, our nominees didn't do that. And, and he spent a lot of time creating this illusion of momentum with these town halls. And he was talking all the time, I've done 75, I've done 80 town halls. The problem with those they were all Republican events. Only Republicans were allowed into those town halls. They were not open to the public. He was not trying to reach out to those in the middle, those whose votes he needed to win. But this illusion of momentum, and everyone got caught up in it. I mean, everyone was talking just 2 days ago. Just 2 days ago. All right, hey, Dylan, how are you doing? I'm trying to read your whole comment here. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dylan, I disagree. There's not massive fraud. There's not massive fraud. Let me tell you, if there were buses, and that comment about Democrats busing people into New Hampshire, everyone has these things. Everyone has these phones. If there were buses of voters coming into New Hampshire to polling places or near polling places or a few blocks away from polling places with people going in and out all the time, there'd be tons of video of that, Dylan, and there is no video of it. There are no pictures of it. So this whole thing of the Democrats busing people, and it's just not true. And listen, if we're going to complain about massive fraud and the Democrats cheating and busing people in, we're never going to win anything. We are never going to win anything. And here's the thing that we have to do is, the Democrats are very organized. They're very good at getting the people out to vote. They're very good at election day operations, and they're very good at working the system in a way that's legal, might be up to the line, but it's legal. And what we end up doing is just talking to the echo chamber. We're talking to ourselves. We're not out talking to those in the middle who decide elections. And we have to stop saying this stuff about there's election fraud, there's election fraud. We might be in the same position here in a few days as far as winning control of the U.S. Senate that we were in 2020. You might recall that after the election, it was 50 Republicans, 48 Democrats, and 2 runoff elections in Georgia. And we lost both of those in 2020. And one of the reasons we lost both of those is instead of focusing on winning those races, Republicans were running around complaining about voter fraud and stealing elections. And we ended up losing them. And we might be in that situation, in a few days here. There is a runoff in Georgia. It was announced today. Herschel Walker and Warnock. So the question is, are we going to be at 50-49 and we need that to win to be at 51-49? We won't know that till we find out more about Arizona and Nevada. So, all this, we need to just stop it, and we need to work harder and strategize better to get people out to vote and to get our message out instead of complaining about this non-existent voter fraud. And Dylan, you're getting me off on something here. I've read a lot about the 2020 election and these allegations about voter fraud and everything. And I'm actually going to do probably 2 or 3 Facebook Lives on it. It's just not true. And let's focus on substance. Let's focus on executing a plan to win elections. Hey, Glenn, how are you? Let me see your full comment here. Hold on. Oh, I can't pull it up, Glenn. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Glenn. I think those are good comments. It's just, if you saw the video of Don BOLDUC when he was talking about Social Security and Medicare, he just basically said get rid of it and not make it better or not anything like that. And Don's lack of leadership during this campaign, and his aggressive style, and quite frankly, his dishonesty, his flip-flopping, had a ripple effect. And it cost Caroline Leavitt CD1 for sure, in my opinion. I don't know that Bob Burns had a chance in CD2. And it definitely cost Don BOLDUC the U.S. Senate seat. There's no question about it. He lost by 9 points. And that was supposed to be close. In this environment, to lose by 9 points, is pretty darn bad. And okay, yeah, this comment, let me see if I can pull this comment. Yeah, Sandra, we can go, yes, have Democrats said that Trump was an illegitimate president? Absolutely he did. Or she did. Yes. Stacey Abrams in Georgia, said that Kemp was illegitimate. but let's focus on winning. I mean, this, New Hampshire runs a very, very safe and secure election. Yes, sometimes there's mistakes and there's problems, but but they get fixed. There's none of this massive fraud going on. I mean, we got to get off of this. Yes, we need, safe, fair elections. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. But we put way too much energy into just pointing fingers that we lost because of fraud instead of actually getting out and doing the work, to get people elected. So it's, and we have to run a more uplifting, substantive campaign. We have to have solutions. We have to look to the future to make America better. We just can't sit there and say it's all your fault, you're wrong, I can do it better, and then you never say about how you can do it better. And the thing is, and that's why, when Don BOLDUC said to Adam, I think it was Adam Sexton, on TV, when Adam was asking about the Dobbs decision and how women were reacting to it, and he said, well, just get over it. That was awful. And we need better politicians than that. And listen, and Don's a politician. I know he likes to say he's an outsider. He's been running for the U.S. Senate for 4 years. He ran against me and I beat him in the primary. And for those of you who don't remember that, I beat him by 8 points in the primary in 2020. And he just kept running. In fact, at the Unity breakfast in 2020, he said at the Unity breakfast in 2020, Hassan in 2022. So he's been running for 4 years. And, and another thing, someone made a comment, by the way, people that are making these comments on my Facebook page and insults and calling me names and, you're just embarrassing yourself. And someone said that BOLDUC did better at the polls than me. Look at the facts. Don's going to end up with about 270,000 votes from yesterday. If you go back and look at 2020, I had about 329,000 votes. And I beat him handily in the primary. But listen, I think that Sununu won big. We barely kept the state house. We did good in the state senate. Our federal candidates got wiped out. And I think much of the underperformance with our state reps and our federal candidates is the result of Don BOLDUC's bad campaign, the fact that he's a weak candidate. Listen, Mitch McConnell pulled out of here because he's a weak candidate. And he doesn't know the substance. You would think after campaigning for 4 years, he would understand policy. He would have ideas. He would make proposals. Didn't do it. And that weakness, that anger that came out, that dishonesty, I think affected all the candidates. And that's why we did weaker in New Hampshire. And the fact that he stiff-armed Sununu right at the beginning. How do we restore voter confidence, Sandra? Let me tell you, I'll give you an idea, Sandra. If you have some time in the next week or so, there undoubtedly will be some recounts. In 2020, I went down and observed some of the recounts. And And it's a process. It is a process that will, in fact, instill confidence in the election. So if you got time to do that, you ought to do it. Democrats were dishonest about the abortion issue. They called the new New Hampshire law, which was the first time there was a law on abortion in New Hampshire. They called it an abortion ban. Well, it banned abortions in the third trimester. In fact, the New Hampshire law is really, really, really consistent with Roe v. Wade. And that's the law in the state of New Hampshire now. And Dobbs overturning Roe v. Wade put it in the hands of the states. I get there's I don't have any bad blood. Why would I have bad blood, Gerald, with BOLDUC? I beat him in 2020. I donated to his campaign. Listen, when any candidate asked me to do anything in this cycle, I did it for them. I was asked to donate to his campaign. That's what I did. I wasn't asked to do anything else. At any rate, I'm rambling. We have to learn to win. We have to come up with a strategy. We have to come up with ideas. We have to come up with policies to make the future of this country better. And we got to stop the insults. We got to stop the complaining. We need to run uplifting campaigns. At any rate, guys and gals, thank you. Thank you for watching. I suspect this Facebook Live might hit 1,000 views. So thanks so much and have a great evening. Bye-bye.